Welcome again to the Actors Vow. This is Denise Moratrepat and I'm so excited for you to be here and for this episode. I recorded this episode a long time ago and I've been waiting for the right moment because it's a really good one and I know you've been asking for this. But before we get to our awesome guest, are you excited for the Oscars this Sunday? Okay, I am very excited. The Academy Awards, yes, it's a superficial thing. And yes, we don't do it for the Oscars and all that. But I just have an emotional relationship to it because when I was a little girl in Spain, I was like 7 years old when I started doing this until I left at 17. Every year on the Oscars, that would be a very special day. I was in Spain, so they did the Oscars when it was like 2 a.m. for me. And that was the only day of the year that my parents would let me stay up and, stay up until like 6 a.m. even if I had school the next day because it was always on a Sunday. Now, we also didn't have the channel that gave the Oscars. That was like a paid channel in Spain. It's not everywhere. So I had to also find it online illegally. And it was always in a bad quality. It would stop every, 20 minutes and I would have to restart it or find another link. It was craziness for the hours that the Oscars lasted. But that night was always very special. And yes, I've always been in love with theater. And at some point, I didn't even want to do film and TV. But I don't know, seeing that was always such a dream and such a goal for me in the way that, I would see those people getting their dreams come true. And the speeches, damn it, the speeches was my favorite part. I would cry with the speeches of, imagining that someday that is possible. That, some of those actors started without anything and just got there. And when an international actor would win, I would imagine, someday that might be me. And at that point, I was in Spain and I didn't even imagine that someday I would be living in LA right now, having this podcast and this awesome community. And if this is not the dream, I don't know what is. And also being a professional actor here in Los Angeles, this is literally what that little girl was dreaming about and it's happening and it's just amazing. So yes, I love watching the Academy Awards. I don't care if it's superficial. I don't care if, there are a lot of things wrong with the awards. Yes, and I will also talk about that and say all the things that are wrong about the awards. But I also think it's a magical night of dreams coming true for a lot of artists. There are artists that have been working very, 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 very hard their whole lives. And after many years of rejection and hard work, their work is recognized on that night. And I think that is beautiful. So just letting you know, the Oscars are this Sunday and I hope you will be watching. And I will tell you my opinion about them next Wednesday. So having talked about that, I hope you're well. Please let me know if you watch the Oscars. Let me know if you want to do something special on the Oscars this Sunday. We will definitely be doing something cool with my coaching program. If you don't know that, I have a coaching program. It's called the Actors Vow TAV coaching program. And right now, doors are closed, but they're gonna open again. So make sure you join the waiting list if you want to work with me and have me as your coach and have acting classes and work on your craft and technique and all those things. You can sign up in the link in bio of TikTok or Instagram for the waiting list and you'll be the first one to know when doors open again. Now let's get to our amazing guest today. The reason why I brought our guest today is because one of the questions, complaints and comments I get the most is I am shy, I am not confident, I'm very insecure. What do I do about it? How can I be an actor? I understand, and that's a very common, especially for young actors. If you're a teenager starting your acting career, it might be very hard. And the truth is that it's a very important thing to learn in this industry. Not just confidence, not just, being sure of yourself, but also self-love. And that's why today I have the amazing Miki Abraham here. Miki is a professional stage actor, but she's also a self-esteem coach. She most recently was seen in the first national tour of Once on This Island, an awesome musical, and she has toured the country with 2 national tours. She has also performed internationally on cruise lines, which we're gonna talk about in the episode. She also spent 3 months in LA on a reality television show, danced on hot concrete 6 times a day at a theme park, and she has been in 3 productions put on by an Amish regional theater. So basically, she has done it all. Now, in 2017, things changed for Miki because she did a contract and her supervisor told her that she was overweight. At the time, those people that she was working for threatened her that if she didn't lose weight, she could lose her job. Now, Miki didn't have the tools to deal with that then, but it was a very life-changing moment. She felt like she wanted to hide away and make herself smaller, as we all would have felt in a situation like that. Can you imagine? And that was the only thing that makes sense at that time, and she continued with the contract for a while. Now, that moment taught her that she needed to learn how to navigate this tough industry, and she needed to build those tools for herself. And finally, in 2018, she became an ICF accredited certified life coach. And over the past year, she has helped numerous humans navigate that tricky thing called life with empathy, accountability, and mental health education. I always say that as an actor, you can study as much as you want, all the technique in the world, but if you don't have the right mindset, it is going to be very, very tough for you. As she said, it's a very tough industry, and you need to learn to love yourself and know who you are. I don't think Miki needs further introduction. She's going to tell us all about herself. So let's welcome Miki Abraham to The Actor's Vow. Welcome, Miki, to The Actor's Vow. I'm so happy you're here today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, so the reason why I brought you here is you're a life coach, but first you were an actor and you are an actor.
Yes,
so,
yeah.
You know, who better to understand actors than a life coach that is an actor?
Exactly.
So, my first question for you is the one that I ask all the actors that come, and that's, what made you want to be an actor?
Oh, good question. So I've actually been performing since I was 7 years old. There was a really great community theater in my hometown, and I have an older sister, and she was doing theater, and I was like watching her go to rehearsals, but I knew that I wasn't old enough to do it yet. And so when I turned 7, I auditioned for Little Orphan Annie, and I got cast as Annie. And it was the first thing I had ever done. And I always say, I think I was the OG Black Annie, because this was in like 1999. And I was in Kentucky, and I was like, I don't know if this has ever been done before.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And ever since then, the theater bug bit, and I've been doing it ever since. It was definitely something that I just looked up to my sister while she was doing it. And now she's a nurse and I'm a professional actor. So, it was just inside of me somehow. I come from a really artistic family, and they were supporting me, and that plant was being watered, and here I am.
Are your parents in the acting industry too?
They aren't. So my dad sings. My dad sings. So when he was younger, he's also a personal trainer, and he did like a lot of like fitness stuff. He did a lot of like bodybuilding and stuff. So there were always really uncomfortable photos of my dad around the house in like Speedos and stuff. No. Because he was like he had great success at that. But yeah, he's a singer, and he'll just kind of sing around our like hometown now for events and things like that. And my mom is like the best little like stage mom, and she's just always there supporting everybody. So yeah, I definitely got the artistic bug, like from my dad and from my sister. And I just have a really, really great family that just made it. I know with the theater industry, that's not a thing that happens a lot.
No.
But I got very lucky to be placed in the family that I am in. to
That's
support
amazing.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that you got that support. Like, yeah, so many actors don't have it, and it's so tough to make it when you don't have that,
Ab-
not just in
yeah.
a financial or anything way, like just the emotional support that you need from those that love you.
And yeah, and that's it. That's interesting that you brought that up, because it's definitely like not the financial side. Like my parents definitely were not helping me financially. It was just like they were always there, for me to call and be like, "Hey, I didn't book this." And they weren't like, "Well, maybe get a different minor." No, they were like, "Okay, well, back to the drawing board. What are you auditioning for next?" So it was very much like that support was there. So it would have felt odd to quit, because I felt like everybody just like expected me to be great, and I just
Right.
had that momentum and I just went with it. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
You were explaining that we have such a similar story. I also started in community theater at 7 years old,
Oh yeah.
and
Yes.
same story. And then I kept acting. So, and my family was also supportive. I mean, that's why I'm here. I know if it hadn't been for that, I would be probably doing something else and regretting it. But
Yeah, working a 9 to 5. Maybe we would still have jobs now, though. But who
I'd
knows?
rather not have a job and be an actor.
You're right. You're right. I agree. For sure.
So yeah. So you've been acting for many, many years then,
Yeah.
and then you became a life coach. Can you tell us
Yeah.
about that transition?
Yes. So it's interesting. So I've done, I like to joke and say that I've done literally like every type of performance contract that you could possibly think of doing. I've worked at like theme parks and regional theaters and cruise ships and national tours and done the gambit. But I actually decided to get my coaching certification when I was working on a cruise ship. I won't say what cruise ship it was, but I was working on a cruise ship, and
Okay.
they had this practice where they weighed you every week. So we had weekly weigh-ins. And so every Saturday when we were at port, I would be weighed. And see, what was weird about that is that like I knew that coming in because I had some friends that had worked for the company before.
Did they tell
And
you in the contract that you had to keep a certain weight?
in the contract, it said that I couldn't gain or lose 15 pounds. So I think that was the gaining or the losing was, I guess, for men and women. Like if the guy is super muscular, like you want him to stay the way that they are.
Right.
And like, I understood that and I signed that and I was like, great, I understand the industry that I'm in. Like I'm self-aware, it's cool. But the thing is like, so I went to my audition and I wore a sports bra and leggings. I'm 5'10". I'm not like a stick. I'm a curvy lady, but I know that I can, the theater industry is fine with the way I look, or they had been. So I joined the company and they were weighing me in every Saturday. And I started getting like hearing from my cast manager that the person that was over the ship, who never had seen me, never had met me, was looking at a piece of paper and seeing my weight. And they said, why has no one talked to Mckynleigh about her weight? Why has no one talked to her about this? And I was like, well, does he know that I'm the tallest person in the cast, number one? So that's why I'm the heaviest. Also, I'm a singer. I was cast as a singer on the ship. So
Oh
not
my
that really
God.
matters, but I wasn't, I wasn't a dancer track. So
Right.
I was like, this is super strange. And then I had my cast manager just straight up say that I couldn't do a certain part of a dance because I was fat. And I heard that. And at this point I was already out of college, and I was like, okay. So I was hearing this and I was like, I don't actually know how to deal with
Right.
this feedback. Like I've never gotten this before. No one has ever mentioned my weight to me before. Like I feel like I'm kind of trapped. Like I signed a contract. I got in the middle of the ocean, and now what do I do? And so I was like, this is really uncomfortable for me. And I say, whether it's God or the universe or any higher power, that week that my cast manager told me I was fat, I got an offer to join the national tour of Beautiful, the Carole King musical. Literally
Uh,
that week. And I was like, bye. I was like, peace out. I gotta
that
go.
was a sign. You had to go.
Yeah. And I just, it's so funny. I just remember talking to my mom like on that Saturday, and I was like, the cast manager said I was fat. Like, it's becoming this big thing. I don't want to be on the ship anymore. And then literally Tuesday after that, I got an offer to leave and go on national tour. And I was like, this is what I wanted to do anyway.
Yeah.
Like, this is amazing. So at that point, once I got off the ship, I started thinking, you know, how many times has this happened to people in the industry? Like, how many times are people told, you know, you're too big, you're too little, you're too tall, you're too short, you're too old, you're too dark, you're too light? You know, how many times are we told that? And are we prepared for that in our collegiate training to know how to handle what we don't have control over? Like, we're not. Like, we're just taught to go in the room and do what we're told and sign the contract and keep our mouths shut and be small and be thankful that we got an opportunity.
Yeah.
And so I think that was kind of the turning point for me, where I was like, okay, for myself, I want to figure out like the tools that I need to have to be able to deal with things that I cannot control. And then in getting that certification 2 years later, after having the certification, I was like, okay, I'm going to start to coach other people. And, you know, 2020 just kind of shot that into high gear because I had nothing else to do.
Right.
And and so here I am, and I'm doing a lot of self-esteem coaching. And you know, it's kind of centered around women right now, but that's not on purpose. That's just kind of who has found me. But yeah, I'm just really trying to like help people focus on like what they can control and what they can't control, because this industry is insane. We love it, but it's crazy.
Yeah, and I think women deal with it more than men. Not that men don't, but yeah, in my experience, we deal with it all the time. And I'm so sorry you went through that. Like, I know it feels terrible, and that's such an outdated thing. Like, I actually was talking about it this week on Instagram about like resumes.
I saw what you
Don't
posted.
put your weight. That's like, it's none of the business. Weight looks different on all bodies. What you're saying, you're tall, so you're gonna weigh more, and it just doesn't matter.
And I have to say, like, something that's crazy is like I put something up on Instagram about how I had this experience with this contract, and a director that like has a Tony that directed me in a show, like a Broadway big name person, blue check, verified everything, commented on it, and he was like, who weighed you? That's crazy. And I was like, and there you see that if your goal is like Broadway or like that, we're not doing that. Like, that's ridiculous. And when you think about it, it's like, who is it that's trying to weigh you? Like, in the grand scheme of things. And I'm not, you know, knocking cruise ship work, because that's a valid, you know, career. But if you look at it, you're like, what? Like, you're weighing me to pay me how much a week?
Is
like,
this my dream, really? Like
what? It's like, it's definitely not worth it. But something that you said about women and men is what the unrealistic beauty standard of women. It's like, for men, they like want you to be strong. Like, they want you to look strong. They want you to be ready to take your shirt off in the room and look strong. And it may be all about the aesthetics, but also if you look like you're ready to take your shirt off, you're probably strong. Like, if you're a guy, right? And for women, they just want you to be like slim, like thin.
So much more. And also like the face, like they don't just care about the body and the age. I feel like in the industry for women, like men can age and they keep getting jobs, but for women, once you reach a certain age, especially in film and TV, they're like, oh, you're too old to play the lead.
Yeah, and it's like, we also just like never tell us how old you are. Like, honestly, why though? Like why does that matter? Like, we all age. Like, who cares?
Like, you can look a certain age and be another. Like, you know, I get cast all the time for high school things. I'm like, I'm 20 something. Like, I'm not in high school, but
it's crazy. It's the things that like, it's the things that have been put in place, and it's like, no one has taken the time to say, but why though? Like, no one has said why though. And that's why
I feel
so
like
many
now
things,
we're starting.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And that's like something that I'm so excited about, like the theater industry coming back too, is that like, you're going to have a bunch of like realized people that are going to be like, I can't wait to walk into a room and be like, oh, you didn't like that? okay, cool, I'm gonna go. Like, cool, bye. Like, it was nice to meet you. I'm not pressed by this. Like, it's fine. Yeah.
Same. Yeah. I mean, I haven't been in the theater industry for 3 years because I moved from New York to LA.
Yeah.
And I've been doing film and TV, but pre-pandemic, I took it very like personally. If those things happened on the audition room, I'd be like so hurt, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I can't wait to go back. I'm going to be like, I don't even want to work with you. It's fine.
Like it's okay. Like I'm not, and I think that's like the biggest thing that like we have to get out of our heads because of like training and stuff. Like we are literally conditioned to just be like bow our heads and be like, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm gonna zip up my lips. And it's like you can be professional and grateful for what you have while also like understanding that you are a human being that is working with another human being. And it like, let's just I always say that, like, let's just be humans. Like, let's just be regular normal human beings that interact with each other and are kind and like get things done without treating each other like shit. You know?
Yeah. And I think the biggest problem is that most theater and acting schools in the country are so outdated. Like they all teach the same that they've been teaching for the past 100 years. I had a guest the other day and he went, after graduating here, he went to study in Europe. And he studied in France and Italy and the UK. He was like, it's so different, you know, and there's so many more things that they don't teach here. I think like the industry needs to keep moving, you know, with like the times.
I think about that all the time. And I think about like my professors in school. Like there are ones that I hold very near and dear to my heart. Like I love them so much. Right. But then I look at them and I'm like, but did I actually learn anything that's helping me in this industry currently? Not really.
Not like, in the business part.
Not in the business part. No, it's like, yes, you taught me how to interpret text. Like I got that. But like when it comes to like, you know, the business side of it and like speaking up for yourself and, you know, knowing that you can, here's a novel idea, like knowing that you can put something in your contract. Like when right before you sign a contract, you can say, I would like this to happen, or I want this. Like you're allowed to open your mouth and request things.
Yes.
And that's just not a thing that we're taught. And so I just try to, you know, with my whole coaching side of things, I just try to like show up and like be there for people to be like, hey, you know, you're allowed to have an adverse reaction to that thing. Like no one's gonna blacklist you because you feel a certain way about that thing, you know?
I love that. You're changing that. I love it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about like last week you did a whole 7-day self-esteem challenge.
Yeah.
And I want to go through them and talk about your 7 points because I think they're so relevant for actors. Yeah. So your first point was social media. How does social media relate to self-esteem?
So social media is a huge thing with self-esteem because, you know, you look at your phone and you're scrolling through all these people and it's a highlight reel of people's lives. Like it is not real. Like I know that like one day, even on my social media, like one day I was dancing around the kitchen and like 3 hours later I was like crying about something, I don't know, because it's 2020/2021 and maybe we cry all the time, you know, like, but it's all about, you know, curating your feed. And I think that that's something that we don't think of all the time. We think of social media like, oh, you're my friend in real life, so I have to follow you on social media. And it's like, well, those are two totally different things. Like sometimes someone on social media is not the same person that you hang out with all the time. And I think it's just like allowing yourself to say, you know what, it's okay to like mute that person, even if they're your best friend. Like maybe seeing them on social media just doesn't serve you, because a lot of times, you know, if you're sitting in your home and you're scrolling like we all are right now, we're sitting in our homes and just like doom scrolling sometimes, is we'll run across people and we'll start comparing our lives to them because we think that we know everything about their lives, when in all actuality we're just seeing like a second of what they choose to share. So it's, you know, it's all about comparison. Like social media is huge with comparison. So with my challenge, I had all of my followers unfollow at least 3 people that were making them feel anything less than good about themselves, and that can be a celebrity, a friend, whatever. And it's not all about, you don't have to push unfollow, you don't have to push block, you can mute it. Like social, like Instagram is literally made for you to make it work for you. We just don't do it. Like you can literally mute someone and you're still following them, they're still following you, they have no idea they're muted. Like somebody may mute me because they're annoyed at like how positive I try to be all the time, and that's okay. Like I don't know, but I know that, like, especially for this year, I have really cut down on my social media. Like I deleted my Facebook, which was a huge thing because I was one of those kids that had Facebook like when I was allowed to have it. So I think I've had one since I was like 12 or something. So I had so many photos and so many friends and all of this. And I just started to notice that I was opening myself up to everyone's opinion. And I didn't really want it. I didn't really want everybody's opinion. And so I deleted my Facebook. I deleted my personal Instagram. So now I just have my one Instagram. That is the only social media that I have. And I just use it, you know, for coaching. And honestly, if you look at my feed, you see like my best friends and like a bunch of other coaches and people that fill me with good feelings. Like I don't, and there you go. They're the actors now. I follow you. So that means, that means that you have good energy. You make me feel good. So,
thanks. I mean, it's Facebook is crazy. If you've had it for many years, like I still have people from high school, and now that you're saying it, it's like I haven't talked to these people in like 12 years. Like what am I doing here?
But you know what they feel about politics.
Yes, like, and we're so different. We're very different people. What are we doing here?
Yeah, exactly. Like, would I be friends with you if I met you today? Probably not. And so why am I opening myself up to your energy every single day? Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Absolutely. And I think that especially in acting, social media is playing such a big role. So I'm not saying like don't have social media, because we need it. And it's crazy because like casting directors are starting to cast on social media, and it's so easy to compare. They're casting influencers that have never acted before, and you're like, I need to look like that. And it's what you're saying, you're not realizing they don't even look like that in real life. It's so hard to not compare yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, you know, definitely what you said, you know, having social media is helpful, like in the theater industry, but they don't see who you're following. Like, that's the thing. Like, they don't see who you're following. They see what you choose to show to them. And there's the whole other side to it. Like I follow some people that literally don't follow anyone back. And some people may think like, oh, what, you think you're too good to, and I'm like, no, don't follow anybody. Don't use Instagram for that if you don't want that. Like,
that's your time. That's what you're going to be seeing.
It's your time. And sometimes you have to kind of strong arm yourself. Cause I know I had a strong Facebook addiction, and I know that. Like, I would just immediately wake up and just click it, like for no reason. It's just a habit. I would do it. And I knew that the only way that I could stop myself from doing that was just to delete it. Like I knew that I couldn't just delete the app. Like I had to get rid of the whole thing. I mean, it's all about setting boundaries for yourself and knowing that it's okay to delete things and it's okay to unfollow people. Like, no one's gonna care, honestly. Like,
and you're saying this about the time you spent on Facebook, something that I found very helpful because I didn't want to delete it. I set myself like a timer that tells me once you've spent like 2 hours on social media, it tells you. And you don't have to stop there, but at least you're aware. Okay, 2 hours. And then I can decide what I do with it.
And you can be like, ooh, do I really want to spend that much time of my day just scrolling around on Facebook? Like, maybe some days you do, but other days, maybe not.
And sometimes if you have a business or you're an actor or you like do work, it's okay. You're going to spend a lot of hours, but just be aware on like what you spend your time on.
Absolutely.
Then your second point was self-talk. So tell us about self-talk.
Self-talk, absolutely. So, self-esteem doesn't come from outside stimuli. Like, no matter
Mm.
how much someone tells you, you are great, you are beautiful, you are amazing. Like, if you haven't dealt with like your inner voice,
Mm.
none of that is going to matter. Like, none of it's going to matter at all. I know that, especially, and all of these things, all seven of these things that we're talking about have come from like my own personal experience of me dealing with it. And I know that, because I've been in theater for so long, and because of my dad is like never meets a stranger. Like, he's such a personable person, he's such a big personality, and I have that as well. And so, I've had friends of mine being like, well, everybody likes you, Mickey, like everybody like you're so great, blah blah blah. But like, on the inside, I'm like, ooh, but I'm still dealing with all of these limiting beliefs that I have about myself, and
Right.
all of this like childhood trauma that has come out, and all of this stuff. And so I think it's all about what you tell yourself, because your body, your mind believes what you tell it about yourself.
Yes.
So if everybody's telling you you're amazing, but when you wake up in the morning, you're like, ugh, I should have been awake an hour earlier. I'm lazy. I'm a slob. Look at my apartment. It's a mess. Like, I don't, I'm going to sing, but I know that I can't hit that note. So I'll just choose a completely different song. Like, it's all of this like negative self-talk that I feel like is ingrained into us as performers,
Yes.
because we are told countless times that this industry is oversaturated, that it's hard to succeed, that like we're not gonna make it, like maybe get a backup plan. Like,
Mm.
we've heard that so much that we start to discount our own talent, and we start to be like, oh well, I'm not like, that A-list celebrity, so there's no way that I can do it. And so then you're going to start to believe that, and so
Yeah.
you're just sabotaging yourself before it happens.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about, positive reinforcement, and like setting something positive that's recurring. I love to do affirmations. I think that
Mm.
affirmations are great, but I also think that affirmations are great when you come up with them yourself. And there's apps that are great for that, but personally,
Yeah.
when I just see an affirmation app, like, it doesn't really connect to my brain. It's like, oh, that's a
Mm.
nice sentence for someone, maybe. But like,
Right.
if you sit down and my favorite thing to do is I love to write down something that I wish I believed about myself.
Mm.
So instead of like, I am smart, like if I know that I'm smart, I'll be like, maybe more specific, like, I can succeed in building my business, or
Yes.
something like that. Like, making it really specific, making it something you wish you believed about yourself, and like putting it somewhere that you see every single day, or maybe you write it down 3 times when you wake up in a journal, or just putting it in your head. Because if you have that going over and over and over again in your head, you're going to start to believe it, because
Yes.
it's inside of you. Like, you
You're
don't need
tricking your own
validation.
mind. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need validation from anybody else. And it's not going to fix everything, but it's going to like help train your brain out of like sabotaging you. Because as
Yes.
actors, slash also as women, slash also if you're listening and you're a person of color, like, there are so many barriers
Yeah.
that are already set in place. So like, why don't we try to be kind to ourselves so that we believe we can succeed when other people think we can't?
Yes. Yeah. And it just really doesn't help. I feel like actors deal with it so much like right before an audition. At least personally, that's when
Mm-hmm.
it comes, like the negative self-talk, all the things you were saying.
Yeah.
I'm not talented enough, I'm not ready. What am I gonna do? It just doesn't help. So if you can like switch into affirmations, or like go
Yeah.
back to the root of that like negative self-talk. Why am I thinking this? And why is that? And
Yeah.
it usually comes back to like a fear, right? And
Yeah.
it's
And
like, well, yeah.
I think that there's a lot of, I think that too, especially when you're thinking about like going into an audition or something, like, if you do this a lot, you probably have like the same recurring negative thought. Like, and I know for me, like, I get sent in for a lot of women that like wail, that are sing super, super high, and like riff and do all of this stuff, because they see that I'm a Black woman, and they're like, oh,
Mm,
that's your type. But like, I am like the altoest alto of all the altos. like like
okay.
I truly, I can do it. Like, I can sing what you want me to sing, I can make it happen, because I know my voice. But my sweet spot is I'm an alto. So a lot of times I'll like go into appointments or go into auditions, and I'll be like, ooh, I hear that woman and she's belting that part, and I know that when I go in there I am not going to sound like that. So like I would say, you know, if you have a recurring negative thought that's coming into your brain before you even do anything, like sit down, like you know what that negative thought is. Like I'm sure anybody who's listening to this knows what their negative thought is right before they go into an audition. I would think of ahead of time. So like ahead of time you do this work, like think of the affirmation or the sentence that you want to say to yourself that counteracts that, so that when you're in the moment, if you have that negative thought, you can be like, wait, I know what counteracts that. So you're not going to, you're not going to sit there and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to get over this. Oh, my name was called, I have to go in the room. Like that's not going to happen, because if you do the work ahead of time, and you know, that's kind of the rule of thumb in theater anyway. You know, you do the work ahead of time, you show up, you're ready. So you sit down, do that work for yourself. Like that counts as audition prep, you know, knowing that you have a negative thing that comes into your head every time you go into an audition. Then when it happens, you're like, oh, I know the sentence that's going to help me.
Yes.
This is what it is. Yeah.
And do the work when things are good too. Like, I find myself also doing that, but I know most people do it. You know, like you start doing the work when things are wrong, when you're depressed, but like when things are good, then you don't do it. And when the things go wrong again, you're not ready.
Yeah.
So you just got to be consistent.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's all about, you know, like doing that work and realizing that like in the theater industry, like it's so hard because you're being yourself, you know, like you're being an actor, but you're also bringing your experience, and it is the most vulnerable occupation. Like you can walk into a room and suddenly they don't want you in there because they don't like the way you look, they don't like the way you sound, and you're like, whoa, I'm just being me. Like, whoa.
So you take it personally.
Right. It's hard to not take it personally. And so I think, you know, it all comes from like building yourself up, and whether that is like being in coaching, being in therapy, like those things that goes into audition prep, like that counts as training to be the performer that you want to be, like, because you have to be strong on the inside to be able to like walk into that lion's den that is the audition room with those people behind the table. Like it's terrifying.
Yeah, and not just in the audition room, even when like you make it, whatever that is, like and you become successful, like you also gotta be very strong. Like there's those two sides, you know, when you're not getting any jobs and when you're getting so many, like you don't want to lose it. And it's easy to do that too.
Yeah. And it's funny, like you said that, and I got like a little story that I wanted to share is that, so I was, right before the shutdown, I was on the national tour of Once on This Island, and we were in Arizona. I think we were in Arizona. And so I wore a wig in that show, and I would always, you know, if I have wig prep, I bring my own wig. Like I have my own wig that I put on when the show is over, because I'm not taking my hair down. I'm not dealing with it. So I'll have like a head wrap or a hat or a wig if there's like an opening night party or something like that we're going to. And I went to an opening night party, and it's so funny because it was kind of like an out of body experience where I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that I said that to that person, but also go me. Because there was like all these donors, and this like older man walked up to me and he said, is all that hair yours? And then I said, well, that wasn't a very polite thing to say, was it? And then he said, well, I was just asking. And I said, do you like it? And he said, well, yeah, it's really pretty. And I said, great. So why don't we start with that? And then he was like, well, it seems like I made a faux pas. And I was like, yeah, maybe you did. And then when I walked away, I was like, I think I had like a couple of drinks or something. And when I walked away, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that to a donor. Like, oh my God. And then I was like, no, you know what? I'm not sorry that I said that, because he was being rude. And at that point, like I had been doing these, like the work behind the scenes of like, I had been taking care of myself and like journaling and like doing this like mental work. And I was like, I 100% think that was connected, because he said something to me and I was like, no, you can't just say what you want to say to me. Like, and I wasn't worried for a brief moment. I was not worried about the consequences that have been like hammered into my head. Like, don't say something to someone. I was like, no, you can't speak to me like that.
Yeah.
And so that's where, you know, that manifests, like you do the work, and then in real time, somebody may come up to you and disrespect you or whatever. And you politely say,
Yes.
no,
Yeah.
like you don't.
When
you don't
years
listen to me like
ago,
that.
you would have said yes.
Yeah. Years ago, I would have just been like,
Right.
oh, yeah, it's all my hair.
And you felt uncomfortable and you would have regretted it after,
Yeah.
but you didn't know how
Yeah.
to react. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, so let's go to the third point, and that's the morning routine. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So morning routine. So like side note, talking about your subconscious. So like your subconscious is the most susceptible to change, or it's like the most malleable to learning things as soon as you wake up or right before you go to bed. So that's where, you know, when you think of like romantic comedies, it's like, oh, you're the first thing I think of when I wake up and the last thing I think of when I go to bed. Like that's your subconscious. And
Right.
so it's really important, like the practice that you do like as soon as you wake up, and the practice right before you go to bed. So for me, my morning routine, which actually is like new because I'm not great at it. I'm an entrepreneur. Like I have my whole business that I'm doing, and so I find myself glued to my phone with no end hours and no start hours. I'm just making myself available all the time, which is crazy because I preach against that, but I do it. And so actually for the first time in a long time, for the 5 days in a row, like starting in January, I was like, every single day I'm going to journal at least 3 pages every single morning. And I'm not going to look at my phone until I have journaled. I have gone to the bathroom, I've stretched, and I've gotten coffee. Like at that point, then I will look at my phone. And I cannot explain to you the difference that only 5 days has made, because I will wake up and I will not be immediately concerned about, I wonder if my follower count went up, or I wonder if someone sent me a message, or if someone responded to that poll. Like I won't be thinking about that. I'll be like, oh, that was a weird dream. I'm going to journal about it. Like that's like my first thought. And it's become a thing that has set up my days to where now I don't feel like I have to be available all the time to people. I'm moving through things more intentionally because I've put a schedule onto myself. And I know that that's a huge thing, because in 2020, kind of all schedules kind of went out the window. We were like, what's today? What time is it?
It really helps.
Yeah, it helps to have some sort of routine that you do. So I like to say, you know, your day is determined by the first 10 minutes that you're awake. So, you know, how do you want to start your day? Do you want to like open up your subconscious to accepting all of this stuff on social media, whether that be the craziness that's happening in the country right now, or somebody's opinion about the craziness that's happening, or someone's breakfast that they took a picture of that makes no difference to you at all? Like, what do you want to feed your brain in the morning? It's, you know, so that's been a huge change for me. And I, you know, there's a really great book called The Artist's Way, that I think it's Julia Cameron. I think that's who wrote it. And it's great. It's like a 12-week thing. And it goes like week by week, and it tells you, has these like activities that you do. And part of it is morning pages, which is 3 pages of just like writing, like brain dump. Like you're just writing for 3 pages every single day. And you're not supposed to go back and read it. You're just supposed to just like pour it out. And you're just like constantly pouring out your brain. And honestly, it turns into therapy kind of, you know, like you talk out things for yourself, and then you're like, oh, I was a little foggy on what I should do about that situation 2 pages ago, but now I know, like now sense, maybe so it's really great. It's all about like how you want to start your day. And it seems like a no-brainer, but sometimes, you know, in our lives, we need someone to say, hey, do that thing. Like
it's so hard. I mean, personally, morning routine is like that thing that I cannot do. Like at night, I have my routine, but in the morning, I wake up, get on my phone, what you're saying, because I have my alarm. Then you get to turn off your alarm and you see the notifications and you have to peek. And it's so easy to waste that time once you're in bed in your phone. Like once
Absolutely.
you realize it's been like an hour and you're like, oh no.
Yeah, but like, and then I think I get weird dreams when I do that. Like if I'm looking at my phone when I'm in bed, or like TikTok or something, because I always say that like TikTok is reckless because you don't really choose what you see. Like the algorithm chooses what you see. So like if you're on the For You page, like you can see some crazy things that you did not ask to see. And so sometimes like I'll be scrolling and I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna have a weird dream about that. So I try not to look at my phone when I'm in bed, because it just like my brain will take off, and then I'll have a dream about some Gen Zer doing a weird dance wearing a weird outfit. I don't know. It'll be weird.
Yeah, and maybe leave your phone in another room and like get an old alarm clock, and that helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's go to the fourth point.
And I will say, before you go to the fourth one, I just Googled it, and I am right. It is Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way. It is a 12-week program. So like it's on Amazon. You can check it out. I wanted to like double check because I just like said that. I was like, ooh, was any of that right? So,
I'll check it out. That sounds cool.
Yeah.
Okay. The fourth point, that's freedom. That's such a wide concept. Tell us about it.
Yeah, freedom. It's, oh my gosh. It's knowing that no one is thinking about you. Like that sounds mean, but it's true. Like we are sitting here, and the similarities that we have had while we're talking, and I know that, you know, the people listening, the similarities that they have heard, what we've been talking about, like I guarantee you that everyone thinks something negative about themselves before they go into an audition room. Even that person that's in the room that is singing like you wish you could sing,
we all
or saying a monologue the way you wish you could get those beats like they're getting it. They are thinking the same limiting belief. They're thinking the same negative thoughts for them, like that you are. And so I think, you know, it's all about understanding that, well, you may be freaking out because you're like, oh my gosh, I spilled water on my shirt right before I go into this room. And it may be like 2 drops. You're like, oh, they're going to judge me. They're not. They don't care. Like they don't care. And I think that that's like a huge thing to let go of. And it's really hard to let go of that, is knowing that, you know, if you post something on social media, you may be nervous because you're like, oh, somebody's going to see that. And when in all actuality, somebody's going to double tap it or not, and they're going to keep it scrolling. They're going to keep scrolling. So yeah, it's when I say that, you know, nobody's thinking about you. Like, sure, there are people thinking about you. Like, I don't mean that in a mean way, but at the end of the day, like we're all dealing with our own things, especially right now. Like, especially, you know, even if you're a celebrity, honestly, like even if you are a celebrity that is a millionaire, you're still affected by everything that's happening in the world right now. Like we're all dealing with a collective trauma, especially right now. And so like, no one is concerned about, you know, that what you do, or you know, as long as you're not hurting somebody, you know, like as long as you're not getting on social media and just like just like spewing like racial slurs, like as long as you're not doing that, like so don't do that. In light of current events, like don't do that. But it's just kind of the feeling of people are not as focused on you as you are focused on other people focusing on you. So it's just like take some pressure off of yourself.
Yeah, and maybe they'll notice and they'll forget. Like they don't care the way you do, for sure.
No, not at all.
All right, so the fifth one is positive reinforcement.
Positive reinforcement.
Tell us about it.
So positive reinforcement, you know, it's all about like talking yourself up, like talk yourself up. And you know, we always say, you know, like I always tell life coaches, you know, like do you talk to yourself like you talk to your friends? Like, do you do that? Do you hype yourself up like you hype up your friends? And a lot of the time people don't do it because they think it makes them look like they're conceited, or like they think they're all that. But once again, let's nobody's thinking about you. And if you post a picture and you're like, I looked great today, or like I'm really proud of this song I recorded, or I'm really proud of this monologue, or I went outside today, I moved my body every day for a week, I'm proud of myself. Like seeing that stuff, like posting that stuff, seeing that stuff on social media, seeing that stuff like in your normal everyday life with your friends, like that influences them because
Yeah.
they see that and they're like, oh, wow, look at that really confident person. Like, look at them talking themselves up. Like,
Yeah.
there is no rule that says that you're not allowed to talk about yourself in a positive way.
No. And that doesn't mean you're not humble. If it's the
Yeah.
truth, that's the truth.
Exactly. And like also by saying like, oh, I love my outfit today, or like
Yeah.
I put on makeup today and I look great today. You're not saying I'm the most beautiful person in the entire world and
No.
all of the rest of you are ugly. Like you're not saying that. Like you're not saying that at all. Like it's all about the balance of like knowing that it's okay to publicly love yourself. Like that is okay. Like that's a
Yes.
revolutionary thought for people, you know, to understand that like no one is going to think poorly of you if you believe that you are worthy of good things and you hype yourself up. Like talk to yourself like you talk to your friend. Give yourself the amount of grace that you give to your friend and those around you.
Yeah, and you don't need to post it. What you're saying, you can't just talk to yourself. I actually thought of a story that happened the other day, nothing to do with acting, but I played tennis since I was 3 years old until I was like 15. So almost my whole like growing up. And then I stopped playing tennis. And this quarantine, we've gone back to it with my boyfriend. And he had never played tennis before, but I remember everything. I'm like, I got the technique, everything. He's like, oh, you're good. And we had been playing and I lost sometimes, he won others. And then the day he said, you're good, I was like, wait, I'm not good. I'm very great at tennis.
Yeah.
I played for so many years. And then like, I kept repeating in my mind, I'm not good. I'm great. And I like won like 6-0.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, this is so silly, but it's the truth. Like I realized for myself, wait, like I am good at this.
Yeah. And the thing is it also takes the power out of people's, like, if you're dealing with a narcissist, so like we've all dealt with those people in our lives, right? And they all feel like, you know, if they say something good to you about yourself, that you should take it. It's amazing. Like if some man, oh my goodness, a specific man comes to mind, but if some man tells you like, oh, you're beautiful, then you're supposed to be like, oh, you think I'm beautiful? Or if you know, a casting director says, oh, you're really talented. Oh, I'm talented. Like, no, come on now. Like, you know, you're talented.
Yep.
Like, you know, you're talented. You know, you're attractive. You know, you're smart. Like, let's work on talking ourselves up so that when people say those things to us, we can be like, oh my gosh, thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes.
And then that's the end of it. Like, we don't have to put that on a pedestal. That doesn't become our whole world because we've already know that about ourselves. Like, I'm not gonna get on this call with you and be like, oh my gosh, your hair is so blonde, and you're not gonna be like, oh my god, like, no. Like we
I've never heard this. You made my day.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's just knowing that like it is okay to publicly love yourself and talk yourself up.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
Yeah.
And then the 6th one, to have self-care.
Yeah, self-care. I love big proponent of self-care. But I also really like to, you know, drive it home that self-care is not just face masks and bubble baths, and like those things are great, and those things are self-care. But I think that, you know, a lot of times, you know, the media shows us versions of self-care that feels unattainable to the average person. Self-care, and because of that, it's making self-care seem selfish or indulgent or a privilege that we don't all have. Right. But in all actuality, self-care is literally anything that you're consciously choosing to do to better your life. Like, anything. Like my biggest thing that I think is so funny that I classify as self-care, but it 100% is like, so like I said earlier, you know, like I have my whole life coaching business that I am running myself, and I'm working with like non-for-profits, and I have like this whole, my fiance likes to joke and say that I'm running like a whole franchise. Like I have just lots of stuff happening all the time. And I have what is called high functioning anxiety, where I'll start like 10 different projects and I'll do them all at the same time. And whether or not these things are getting done well, I mean, jury's out, but they're getting done. And it's a crazy mess in my mind. Right. And so I had a moment where like a couple months ago, I was like, you know what, Mickey, you can't do this. Like you have to, this is not sustainable. This is gonna, you're gonna hit burnout real quick. And so I started scheduling my days and my coaching down to literally the last moment. Like everything is on a schedule. I know that I have like Tuesdays and Thursdays, I have the same type of coaching session with certain people. Monday, Wednesday, I have a different type. And on Fridays, I have free consultations. Like I know that that is my schedule. That is the way it will always be. So there's never a day that comes that I'm like, oh, what am I doing? I have no idea. My brain is scrambled. And that counts as self-care for me.
Yes.
Because I consciously chose to stop going on autopilot. I chose to stop and say, you know what? I'm going to write this out and I'm going to spend time trying to make my future life better. And that's what self-care is. Like it can be, you know, journaling every day. It can be moving your body, going outside. It can be drinking water, literally anything that takes you out of your autopilot and your subconscious day to day and is benefiting your future self. Like that is self-care. And I think that a lot of times, you know, that gets muddled a little bit and people think that self-care looks one way for everybody, but it really doesn't. Like it's, if you choose anything on the daily to make your life better, that takes you a second to think about it and be like, okay, I'm going to set aside time to do this. It can be free. It is attainable. We all have this ability, even if it's like 30 seconds, a minute to close your eyes and like meditate for a minute before you get onto a Zoom call. Like we all have the privilege of doing that.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's work. Like I think sometimes you think what you're saying, self-care is like take a bath, relax, meditate, and that's all great. But sometimes saying, no, I'm not going to watch TV tonight and I'm going to do work because that's better for my future. That is self-care too.
Yeah. It's all about benefit, like self-care, caring for yourself. Like that's what it is. Like you, and it also, it turns into, you know, cause I love to, when I say things to my clients or I give them, you know, I have a journaling program where I'll give them prompts or whatever. And then whenever I talk to them, I always say, so how do we connect that to what's happening in your life right now? And I think that a big thing with self-care is like, if you're not doing self-care and you're not taking care of yourself, then the people that come into your life, like our bodies, like we have to have something care for us, like whether it's ourselves or maybe you want a partner to do it or a friend to do it. But if you haven't been doing self-care, then you don't actually even know how you want to be cared for.
No,
like you don't know. And so you're bringing another human being into this mix and you're wanting something, but you don't know what you're wanting because you haven't figured it out on your own.
And so much responsibility for the other. Like they have their own self-care too.
Exactly. So you know, self-care, you know, it's great for like you and your current like individual, but if you want to think about it on a wider scale of your friends or your family or a partner or whatever, like it's huge, and it helps with your relationships, like your personal relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to like stress that like so many people I've seen on social media using it as an excuse. You know, like I'm not and it's fine. Like we all need our alone time, our happy time, but you can't just keep using self-care as an excuse to just like actually do the contrary of self-care.
And it shouldn't ever feel like that's another thing. Like it shouldn't ever feel like you have pressure to do it, like, because then it's not working. Like it's not working. It can be like so little. I mean, I've been a vegetarian since January 1st and I'm like super proud of myself. But even that, like I've been cooking a lot, like every dinner, like I will cook every single dinner. And that has become like a self-care thing for me. Just like working with my hands and like making a nutritious meal for me and my partner, like that is self-care for me. So yeah, it's just got to be something, like literally anything that you consciously choose to do.
Yeah, I love that
Mhm.
you just said that. That's just, I love cooking. I cook every
Yeah.
night. And my boyfriend always offers like, no, let's order out, don't cook. And I'm like, no, I like cooking.
No, I
You're
like
the
doing it.
only like girlfriend that is like, no, don't get me food.
I know.
I want to
I'll
make
make
it.
it. Yeah, absolutely. Now, I definitely have like tonight we're getting food.
Yes,
Like
yes.
we have our days, like, on
Of
Fridays or
course.
Saturdays, but like it's all of, and that kind of goes to the schedule, like scheduling things out really works for me. And like cooking at night, cooking breakfast, whatever, feeding myself is I mean, that seems
Yeah,
like a pretty standard self-care activity.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So we have the seventh point, the last one, and that is
Great.
do good.
Do good. Yeah.
Yes. What is
Yeah.
that?
I love that. So do good. It's doing good for others.
Mm,
I was very, very much raised in a household of servitude.
mm,
That's one of the biggest things that I like credit my parents for, is that my dad would always, if he didn't have cash in his pocket, or maybe we didn't, because I don't come from a super wealthy family,
right.
but like if they didn't have anything, they would like go and get some rice or some canned food in their house to give to somebody else. Or it's doing acts of service for other people. And you don't, and not I know there's been like a big trend of like the Venmo challenge, and like you give like $1,000 tip to your waitress, and you film it and you post it. And like, look, if you want to film it, like go ahead, but that shouldn't be
Yeah,
like why you're doing it.
yeah,
Like, I think at the end of the day, the person that you're helping, like, they don't really care if you film it, because they're being helped. Like, they're being helped. But it all comes from like, why are you doing it in the first place? Like, are you
yes.
doing it? It's all about your why. Like, are you doing it because you want to have online clout or clout with your friends? Or are you doing it because you have filled yourself up so much by taking care of yourself that you want to like
Yes.
pour out to other people? Like, it's all about pouring your cup out a little bit, but you can't pour it out unless you fill it up. So it's all
Yeah.
about like taking care of yourself, and then seeing, especially, I keep saying the term like especially right now, but like we're in crazy times right now.
Yeah.
And like, and I mean, I have a friend of mine that was on Broadway last year, had been consistently working, and now they have not had unemployment payments since August, and they literally are struggling to buy food. Like, and it's crazy. It's crazy
Hmm.
that that's a thing that is happening right now.
Yes.
How you can go from making six figures to having $50 in your bank account.
Yeah.
And that's really rough. And so I think it all comes from, being a good person and being kind, because you never
Mm.
know when you're going to be in that
Yeah.
position. And like in 2021, like with things shutting down, and any of us could be in a position where we need
Yeah.
assistance from another human. And so I think it's all about, even if you can't give something, even if you can't try and monetarily or physically help somebody, just like treating everybody like human beings.
Yes.
And like, I listen, I know I lived in New York for 6 years, and somebody asks me for money every 5 seconds. Like, I know that that's hard, but it's all about like treating people like humans, because we could all
Yeah.
be there at any moment. And you're going to be really, really upset if you don't treat people like human beings, and then you find yourself in that situation
Yes.
and nobody's treating you like a human being either.
Yeah.
So it's just all about being a good person.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be money. Like
Yeah.
sometimes as an actor, like even in the audition room or rehearsal, like sometimes we're so quick to judge, like, oh, this person today is not prepared. I mean, yeah, that's not professional, but like you don't know what's going on in that
Oh
person's
yeah.
life. So maybe
Yeah.
try being a little bit empathetic and like trying to understand
I
instead of
am I am
judge.
the I am the biggest, like, and I'm not over here saying like, oh, I'm the best, I'm perfect. Like, no, it's not that. But I literally am like the biggest helper at auditions. Like, I'm like somebody came up to me once, and after a dance call, like we had just come out, and they were like, does anybody have any snacks? And I was like, I have peanuts. Like, eat some peanut. Or like
Ready?
someone's like, oh, like what side? What, like, I don't have a side. That side 3. Like, we're doing side 3. I only have side 2. And I'm like, oh, here's side 3. Just like give it back when you come
Yeah.
out. Like, it's all about supporting people. And in the same vein, especially in the audition industry, like understanding that like you are actually not competing against any other human for a role, because if it's right for you, then it will be you. And if it's not right for you, then it will not be you. Like, you don't want a role that's not right for you. Like, you don't want that. You don't want that. And I know that that's really hard to like wrap your head around, because we all want the job. Like, we all want the credit on our resume and the paycheck and the experience. Like, we all want that. But that should not go into sabotaging somebody else.
Never.
Or like help somebody, because if you forgot to print off a side, you would want someone to give it to you.
Yeah, and be happy for them. Sometimes it's like, well, they look like me, but they got it. It's like, well, that means there's opportunity for people that look like you.
Yeah,
so
that means
they got it.
That means that you're not going to run into that person at another audition because they just booked. So somebody's out of the water, and now go to the next thing.
Yeah, like, exactly. You'll be fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you for sharing all this with us. I think they were so helpful. We've been talking for so long.
I know. I can talk about like theater and coaching all day.
Yeah. But tell people where they can find you and work with you and what you have available.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am, so in March, I am actually starting a new group program, and it's called the Self-Esteem Accelerator. So it's going to be a group program. It's 3 months. It's two sessions a month. So you're going to like hop on Zoom with a few different people. It's a limited group. I haven't decided what the amount is yet, but when you get on Zoom and there's too many people, it's too many. So I've got to find that number, but it's going to be like on an application process. My application will be going live, so it'll be you'll see it if you follow me on social media. You can find me on Instagram at CITS Coaching, so that's CITS Coaching, which stands for Castle in the Sky Coaching. So you can find me on that. I have all kinds of programs. I have a journaling program that like comes with a physical journal and 10 journal prompts, with also like accountability check-ins with me every week. So I've got lots of stuff. And while I'm not accepting one-on-one clients right now, I do have I have a wait list that I'm doing, because it's all about balancing my energy so that I can give to those that need it, and I'm not like burnout. But yeah, it's super easy. All the information is on there. You can find me at Instagram, like I said, CITS Coaching, and then also CITScoaching.com. I'm the same handle is across the board. I also have a TikTok.
Oh, okay.
I don't really use it a lot, but there's some things there. Same handle, CITS Coaching. It's pretty one note. You can, if you just Google it, you'll find all my stuff.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us today, Miki. That was great.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this interview. Miki is such a ray of sunshine. She's real, she's powerful artist and businesswoman, and I loved having this conversation with her. I hope you got all the value that she gave us. I hope you can start working on those things on a daily basis, step by step. It just takes a little bit every day to get closer to being confident and loving yourself. So thank you, Miki, again for coming here and sharing all these amazing tips with us. The episode was long, so I'm just gonna leave it here for today. That's all for today. Please remember to follow The Actor's Vow on social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. The interviews are on YouTube with video, which is fun to watch. You can put them on TV and just watch them for a while. Also, make sure to subscribe on iTunes and leave a review. It is very, very helpful for the podcast. I love you. Thank you for being here, and I will see you next Wednesday.